In this video, we will discuss sample line groups. If you'd like to follow along with this video, please open the file samplelinegroups.dwg located in the training folder as discussed in the Working with this Dataset video. A sample line cuts across an alignment and can be used for creating cross-sections. You can use styles to control how sample lines are displayed in a drawing, as well as their associated labels. Once created, they are placed in a sample line group. Let's discuss how to create them. To create a sample line group, simply navigate to the Profile and Section Views in the Home tab, Sample Lines. When you are prompted to select an alignment, you can select it in the drawing. However, if you right-click, you can choose it from a dialog box. Let's go ahead and choose our Bypass 1 alignment, and go ahead and click OK. This opens up the Create Sample Line group. In here, you can give it a name, define styles, and define the data sources that you'd like to sample. Let's give it a unique name called For Cross-Sections. The reason we're giving this a specific name is that sample lines are also used for volume calculations. Those volume calculation sample lines do not need to plot section views, but you need to create a sample line group for them. So we'll just simply call this one For Cross-Sections. We'll go ahead and make sure we pick the road sample line, and we'll make sure we use the section name label. Let's take a look at that label style to see what it actually is going to do. If we click on the drop down here, we'll see the Edit Current selection. In the Label Style Composer, navigate to the Layout tab, and let's verify what's going on here. What this is going to do, if you click on the Contents category and click on that ellipsis button, you'll notice that this property is going to actually dynamically read the sample line station value. The default styles in Civil 3D typically have the sample line name, which will only show you the station name when you create the actual sample line. If you ever move or modify that sample line, it'll maintain that initial station value as its name and will not update the label. Click Cancel and cancel again. Now let's look at the data sources we want to sample. All that we want within our cross-sections eventually is to have the existing ground and the corridor sections. We can toggle off all of the other sources. Let's toggle off FG. We will eventually add in the pipe network, but for now, we're going to turn these two off. And let's toggle off the Bypass 1 and the subgrade surface as well. If you want to be able to control the layer with the Layer Freeze command for the different sources, you may want to set the section layer. The style will control the subcomponents of each of the different objects, and the code set style will control the subcomponents of each of the different links, points, and shapes within the section. However, if you want to just globally turn them off, sometimes it's nice to have them go on their own layer. We'll go ahead and click on here for the combined EG, and we'll simply put a suffix in of -EG, and click OK. Then for the corridor section, we'll go ahead and click on that one, and give it a suffix of -P. And click OK. Change your style to a View-Edit style for the corridor section, and then go ahead and click OK. You'll notice the sample line tools appear, and you are now prompted with the jig to define a station for your first sample line. Let's look at the different options available to creating sample lines. If you look at the drop down here, you'll notice you can do a range of stations, add a station by simply clicking in the drawing, from your corridor model stations, pick points in the screen, and select an existing polyline. If we look at the Select Existing Polyline and zoom in here, you'll notice that we have created a polyline which will show the existing grade of this driveway. This is sometimes a good idea if you're not doing intersection design, but you want to show the proposed grade of this driveway here because it's an industrial drive. We'll go ahead and select the polyline, and of course, as you can see, it's a perpendicular line which then goes at the center of our driveway. We'll click the polyline here, and then press Enter, and now that polyline is a sample line. The station will update when we finish the command. Let's go ahead and change our drop down here to pick points on the screen. Now let's say we want to do another one for this driveway here, but we don't have an existing polyline. So how can we create it? We'll use the AutoCAD Snap mid between 2 points. We'll first define the mid between 2 points of this point here, and then we'll define the mid between 2 points at the bottom here. And there's our sample line. Press Enter, and let's go ahead and end the command just to see what we have available here. There's the polyline at 206, and here's this one here at 031. The only problem is it doesn't go to the center line of the road. So how do we solve that? Go ahead and select your sample line, and you'll notice these grips that appear. Grip editing is a great way to modify your sample lines. You can simply extend this if you wanted to, you can move it along the station value, and you can just dynamically move the sample line around again if you'd like to. However, a nice easy way to make sure this goes right to the center line is click on the Edit Sample Line tool. When you do so, you are then prompted to pick a sample line. We'll go ahead and pick the sample line that we just had selected. And now what you can do is simply edit this here. Now, although it does say the swath width is 0, let's just change this to 5, press enter, and notice how it goes over 5 units over to the other side. Let's change this back to 0 and press enter, and notice how it goes right to the center line of the road. You can change, of course, the other parameters of the sample line if you wanted to as well. Click close here, and now press escape to end the command. Let's press escape to clear a selection set. Now, back in the profile and section views, let's click on sample lines. And let's go ahead and pick our alignment in the drawing. We'll pick the bypass 1 alignment. And notice how we are immediately put back into the sample line tools. Let's go ahead and pick on the drop down here and choose by range of stations. Now we want to add a whole bunch of sample lines at 50-foot intervals. Let's go ahead and click on the true and set this to false for alignment start. You can click here to define a station value within the drawing. We'll just type in 300 and press enter. Let's say for now, we'll go to the alignment end and we'll examine how to remove sample lines after we've already created them. As far as the left and right swath width, what you can do is you can snap it to an alignment if you wanted to, but we're not going to do that. Your snap to alignment is set to false, and for the swath width, if you don't know what it is, because you're not sure what your maximum distance is from the center line to the daylighting, click on the little jig button here, and what you can do is find the biggest distance that you think you're going to need a swath, and simply click on it, and then click a button to the left to get a quick distance. Let's go ahead and say we want a distance of 100 feet. So we'll do 100, press enter, and we'll do the same thing for the right side as well. If we scroll down, do you want to increment this? The answer is true. How do you want it to be defined along tangents, curves, and spirals? We'll just leave it set to 50 feet. Do we want additional sample lines at the range start, end, at the PCs, PTs, etc.? Go ahead and set these to true for each of these, just so we can see sections at each of those station values. And then we'll go ahead and click OK. Civil 3D creates the sample lines for you. To see the labels appear, simply press escape to end the command, and there are our sample lines. The sample lines live in the Prospector tab underneath the actual alignment that you created them underneath. So here's the 4 cross-section sample line group, and we have the sample lines and the sections. As we look at our sample lines, we notice that there's an area where we are not covering the full distance to the daylight. So how do you modify these? We did discuss grip editing, and you can go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and show you a little trick here. If we go ahead and click in space and look at the command line window, you notice there are some selection assist tools. Let's go ahead and choose the fence option here. And notice how our selection tool is now set to fence. Use a crossing fence to select them. Sometimes it doesn't grab all of them, so you can just individually pick the ones that you are missing. So although I could pick each individual arrow grip and move it to the left, here's a little trick that we can do. If we hold the Shift key down and pick each individual one, this will make them something called hot grips. This is standard AutoCAD functionality. What you can then do is simply pick any one of them and it'll automatically modify each of those grips to now cover the swath into the daylight area. And you can manipulate the rest of these as you see fit. Press escape to clear your selection set. Now that we have sample lines and a sample line group, how do you make modifications to all of them? For instance, let's say we chose the wrong style for our sample lines, or we forgot to add in a source. You do not need to change each individual sample line. You can simply select one of them and navigate to the sample line group properties. If you click group properties, you can then go in here and change globally each of the different group labels, the sections to see what style gets used for all of them, the section views as well if we had any, which we do not have any just yet, and so on. If you want to be able to sample more sources, click on the Sample More Sources button here, and let's say we now want to add in the Storm 1. Click Add, and now it'll globally add them into each individual sample line. Click OK, and now that source is added to the sample line group. Click OK, and there's our sample line group, and we're ready to cut sections.